Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Caris May, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Wing Commander Nick Moyle. We warmly welcome the Military Wives Choir, who later in the ceremony will lead us in singing the National Anthem. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony from around Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid by visitors at the base of the Pool of Reflection. To commence this evening's ceremony, I invite you all to stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed at the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and other operations for over more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Corporal Thomas Walter Ford. Thomas Ford was born in Maribor, Queensland on the 28th of March 1895 to Thomas and Emma Ford. Thomas Ford Sr. worked in a bank, but when he was asked to move to Charters Towers, his wife refused to accompany him. Thomas Ford Sr. took his sons to live in Brisbane and was a much more stable influence on his young family. Thomas attended the Brisbane Grammar School and went on to study medicine at university. War broke out while he was still a student, and he enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force within weeks. Ford was posted to the 9th Battalion and underwent a brief period of training in Australia before being sent overseas. The battalion continued training in Egypt before going to fight at Gallipoli. At 1 a.m. on the 25th of April 1915, the men of the 9th Battalion silently transferred into lifeboats and prepared to make their way ashore. Forming part of the covering party, the 9th Battalion landed in 2 waves under heavy rifle fire and quickly made their way inland. The Australian battalions that landed at dawn quickly became muddled in the heavy fire, and it took some time to sort out where every man was. Establishing a front line meant that parts of the 9th Battalion had to retire from their most advanced positions. One of those missing from the first day was Corporal Thomas Ford. It took some time before witnesses could be found, but they reported that he was seen lying wounded in a forward position some hours after the landing. He had been left behind when part of the battalion retired. Reports were sketchy, and it took 18 months before a court of inquiry established with confidence that he had been killed in action in the early hours of the 25th of April 1915. Shortly after Thomas was reported missing, his brother Sydney enlisted in the AIF. He was also killed within hours of going into battle for the first time when his battalion captured the French village of Pozières. His father later established the Ford Memorial Medal for Poetry in memory of his 2 sons. Described as an award in honour of 2 gallant brothers, the Ford Memorial Prize is still given annually for the best poem in English submitted by an undergraduate student at the University of Queensland. Thomas Ford's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among more than 60,000 Australians who died during the First World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Corporal Thomas Walter Ford, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world. They shall grow not old, as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Payne. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We would like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today, and we wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.